About 16 years ago, I embarked on a quest to understand the Red Army on the Eastern Front in World War II. In 2009, I tried to read To the Gates of Stalingrad, Soviet-German Combat Operations, April to August 1942, the Stalingrad Trilogy, Volume 1, by David Glantz. This massive multi-tome project was a few thousand pages long, and it remains the most definitive operational history of Stalingrad, one of the greatest battles in human history. I initially tried to read this book for a few days, and I found a lot of it to be indecipherable. I understood the German side of things, but not the Soviet. Clearly, the Soviet Red Army is very different from Western forces. Using the same mindset as the West was clearly the wrong move. So I sought out help. I wrote to a historian of the Eastern Front, and he provided me with a list of books for my Red Army education. I read every book one by one, and I read the epic Stalingrad trilogy without any problems. I included about half of the historian's recommended list in my list of the 14 best books on how to understand the Red Army on the Eastern Front in World War II. So the excellent advice that the historian gave me, I now pass to you. To remind you again of what they are, the 14 best books to really understand the Red Army: Penalty Strike, T-34 in Action, Panzer Killers, The Tanks of Operation Barbarossa, Red Army Tank Commanders, History of Second Guards Tank Army, The Russian Way of War, Soviet Military Operational Art, Strategy, Architect of Soviet Victory in World War II, Nemesis, the Red Army, Stalin's Keys to Victory, Stumbling Colossus, Colossus Reborn, and When Titans Clashed. Then I recommend a Tier 2 composed of 4 additional books to complete your tactical education. These are Tank Warfare in the Eastern Front 1941 to 1942, and its sequel Red Steamroller that covers tank warfare in 1943 to 1945. After that, you should tackle the 64th Army at Stalingrad and the 7th Guards Army from Kursk to Prague. After reading these 18 books, you will become completely literate in the Red Army in World War II and will be able to read any advanced book on the subject with full understanding. You can even read primary sources either translated or if you can read Russian. The entire war on the Eastern Front is now open to you, and it's an amazing thing. But it's not over yet. I've selected the further 68 books, mainly the best campaign and battle histories. With the 18 discussed, this full list is now composed of the 86 best researched and most advanced books available in the West that cover the battles of the Red Army on the Eastern Front in World War II and that illuminate the Red Army. Most of these are from the Russian perspective, but some are also high-quality German sources. So you can continue on this journey from now on with more content than most of us will ever have time for. So I'll run through all 86 of the best books on the Red Army in World War II. They are in randomized order, and I posted the Goodreads link in the decision box below. Number 1 is The Price of Victory, the Red Army's Casualties in the Great Patriotic War. Operation Dawn's Left Wing, the Pursuit of the 1st Panzer Army, November 1942 to February 1943. Operation Dawn's Main Attack, the Soviet Southern Front's Advance to Rostov, January-February 1943. The Forgotten Battle of the Kursk Salient, 7 Guards Army stand against Army Detachment Kempf. Demolishing the Myth, the Tank Battle of Kursk, July 1943, an operational narrative. Battle for Belorussia, the Red Army's Forgotten Campaign of October 1943 to April 1944. Tank Warfare on the Eastern Front, 1943 to 1945, Red Steamroller. The Russian Way of War, Operational Art, 1904 to 1940. Aces at Kursk, the Battle for Aerial Supremacy on the Eastern Front, 1943. Dubno, 1941, the greatest tank battle of the Second World War. Stalingrad, City on Fire. The Tanks of Operation Barbarossa, Soviet versus German armor on the Eastern Front. Fortresses in the East, the sieges of Ternopil, Kovel, Poznan, and Breslau, 1944 to 1945. Architect of Soviet Victory in World War II, the Life and Theories of G.S. Aitchison. Tank battles in East Prussia and Poland, 1944 to 1945. Armored warfare in the Battle for Budapest. Last Panzer battles in Hungary, spring 1945. The Sword Behind the Shield, a combat history of the German efforts to relieve Budapest, 1945. Operations Conrad 1, 2, and 3. Objective Ponyri, the defeat of 41st Panzer Corps at Ponyri train station. Stalingrad, New Perspectives on Epic Battle, Volume 1 and Volume 2. The 64th Army at Stalingrad, 1942 to 1943, a day-to-day account of a Soviet Combined Arms Infantry Army during the Battle for Stalingrad. The 7th Guards Army from Kursk to Prague, 1943 to 1945, a day-to-day account of a Soviet Guards Combined Arms Infantry Army. Island of Fire, the battle for the Barricade gun factory in Stalingrad. Kursk, the battle for Provica. The planning and preparations for the battle for Kursk, Volume 1. Air war over Kursk, turning point in the east. The first 5 volumes, the Black Cross Red Star series. Volume 1, Operation Barbarossa, 1941. Volume 2, Resurgence, January to June, 1942. Volume 3, Everything for Stalingrad. Volume 4, Stalingrad to Kuban, 1942 to 1943. Volume 5, Kuban to Kursk, April to July 1943. Days of Battle, Armored Operations North of the River Danube, Hungary, 1944 to 1945. Armored Champion, the top tanks of World War II. Bloody Streets, the Soviet assault on Berlin. Strategy. Penalty Strike, the Memoirs of a Red Army Penal Company Commander, 1943 to 1945. The Caucasus and Oil, the German-Soviet War in the Caucasus, 1942 to 1943. Tomb of the Panzerwaffe, the defeat of the 6th SS Panzer Army in Hungary, 1945. The 2-volume series Zimmer Barachev, German Operations West of Kiev, December 1943 to January 1944. Take Budapest, the struggle for Hungary, autumn 1944. The Rezev Slaughterhouse, the Red Army's forgotten 15-month campaign against Army Group Center, 1942 to 1943. The 2-volume history of the 2nd Guards Tank Army in World War II. The Vyazma Catastrophe, 1941, the Red Army's disastrous stand against Operation Typhoon. Stalingrad Battle Axis 1, 2, and 3. Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of Soviet Russia. Bloody Triangle, the defeat of Soviet army in Ukraine, June 1941. The Drive on Moscow, 1941. Where the Iron Crosses Grow, the Crimea, 1941 to 1944. Tank Warfare on the Eastern Front, 1941 to 1942, Schwerpunkt. The Defense of Moscow, 1941, the Northern Flank. From the Don to the Dnieper, Soviet offensive operations, December 1942 to August 1943. The 2-volume series Endgame at Stalingrad, November 1942 to February 1943. After Stalingrad, the Red Army's Winter Offensive, 1942 to 1943. Kharkov, 1942, Anatomy of a Military Disaster. The Battle for Leningrad, 1941 to 1944. The Siege of Leningrad, 1941 to 1944, 900 Days of Terror. Operation Barbarossa, Invasion of Russia, 1941. The 2-volume series Barbarossa Derailed, The Battle for Smolensk. To the Gates of Stalingrad, Soviet-German Combat Operations, April to August 1942. Armageddon in Stalingrad, September to November 1943. The Battle for Kursk. Zhukov's greatest defeat, the Red Army's epic disaster in Operation Mars, 1941. Hell's Gate, the Battle for Cherkasy Pocket, January to February 1944. Red Storm over the Balkans, the failed Soviet invasion of Romania, spring 1944. Decision in the Ukraine, German panzer operations on the Eastern Front, summer of 1943. Last victory in Russia, Panzer Corps and Manstein's Kharkov counteroffensive, February to March 1943. Kherson Pocket, the encirclement and breakout of a German army in the east, 1944. Soviet Blitzkrieg, the Battle for White Russia, 1944. Kursk, 1943. Keys to Victory, the rebirth of the Red Army in World War II. Greatest Defeat, the collapse of Army Group Center, June 1944. Red Army Tank Commanders, the Armored Guards. Panzer killers, anti-tank warfare on the Eastern Front. T-34 in action. Soviet military operational art in pursuit of deep battle. When Titans clashed, Nemesis, the Red Army, 1930 to 1945. Stumbling Colossus, the Red Army on the eve of World War II. Colossus Reborn, the Red Army at War. So that concludes the 86 best English language books on the Red Army on the Eastern Front in World War II. Thanks so much for watching. Please help out this channel by liking, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell. And check out the playlists. Comment below on what Eastern Front battles interest you the most.